Knee-high by the 4th of July. Well, the corn crop is looking pretty good so far this year. Oh, howdy y'all. Farmer B here, just looking after my fields. Now, you're probably wondering what all this farm stuff has to do with economics. Between fields, seed, water, and a bunch of other things, it takes a whole lot for me to grow corn. But it's going to be worth it because people are going to enjoy that corn, whether it's served on the cob at a picnic or it becomes that popcorn that you're eating watching these videos. By the end of today's lesson, you should be able to answer the following questions. What are the 4 types of resources? How do resources help producers answer the first 2 basic economic questions? How do changes in the amount and quality of resources impact production? You should also start thinking about our big picture question. Why do resources have an immense impact on the production of a good or service? Now, in our previous lesson, we talked about how producers provide goods and services to meet the wants and needs of consumers. Well, the different things that go into making those goods and services are called resources. Okay, well, some economists use the fancy term factors of production, but we're going to stick with resources for today's lesson. A resource is something used to produce goods and services that people want or need. A little butter, maybe some salt, and definitely some of my corn. All of those ingredients are resources that go into making popcorn. Now, if you open your PDF to page 5, you'll find a graphic organizer. You can fill out that graphic organizer as we work through this section of the video. Resources fall into 4 different categories: natural resources, capital resources, human resources, and goods. Natural resources are derived from nature and used in the production of goods and services. As a farmer, what are some natural resources that I might use to produce corn? That's right, my fields are a natural resource, and so are the seeds I planted. Capital resources are resources that include tools, technology, machinery, money, and other human-made items used to produce a good or service. Can you think of any capital resources that I might have used? You got it. My tractor is a capital resource. So is the money the bank loaned me to buy the farm. Human resources are resources that include people providing labor, work, intellect, skills, knowledge, or creativity to provide a good or service. Any ideas about some human resources I used? Yep, the hours of work I put into the farm are a human resource. Or if I decided to take a course on new, more efficient farming techniques, that would be an improvement to my human resource. Now, that 4th type of resource may sound a little familiar. In our previous lesson, we said that goods are physical things used to meet a consumer's wants or needs. Well, there are 2 types of goods: final goods and intermediate goods. Final goods are goods that are purchased by the end consumer for their own use or consumption. Now, if you buy my corn at the farm stand and have it for dinner, it's a final good. The device that you're watching this video on is also a final good. But when we discuss resources, we're more concerned with intermediate goods. Intermediate goods are goods that are used in the production of another good rather than being sold to the end user. Take a second and try to think about how my corn is an intermediate good when it comes to popcorn. That's right, my corn is essential to making popcorn, which is the final good, the one a consumer is using for themselves. Now for the popcorn manufacturer, they might purchase other intermediate goods like the boxes the popcorn is sold in or the salt used to season the popcorn. All of these are necessary parts of the final good. Okay, time for your first guiding question. What are the 4 types of resources? Be sure to provide an example of each. Now that we've talked about the different types of resources, we need to discuss how they impact our decision-making process. Remember those 3 basic economic questions? Pause the video for a second and see if you can remember them. What to produce, how to produce it, who to produce it for. Well, the resources available to producers have a huge impact on how we answer the first 2 economic questions. The resources we find around us play a huge role in determining what we are able to produce. For example, would I be able to grow all this corn if I lived in an apartment in a big city? Probably not. But because I happen to live on this big piece of land with great soil, I'm able to farm. But on the other hand, the popcorn processing company I sell my corn to has a factory in the city. Why is that? Well, more people live in the city, meaning that the company is able to hire enough people to work in the factory. Our available resources also determine how we produce a good or service. What does that look like? Think about my tractor, that capital good. If I didn't have access to a tractor or couldn't afford one, I'd have to plow my fields differently. Maybe I would hitch a plow to an ox or even plow by hand. All right, time to check in on those guided viewing questions. How do resources help producers answer some of the basic economic questions? Now, it is important to remember that our world is constantly changing. That means that our resources are always changing as well. As the amount of resource changes, production is impacted as well. Let's take my field that I use to plant corn. There's only so much that I can produce on that land. But what if I buy more land to farm? That's right, I can produce more corn. As the amount of a resource, in this case land, increased, my ability to produce growing corn increased as well. But what if the quality of resources changes? Now, let's say agricultural researchers work on developing a new breed of corn. The seed requires less water to sprout, requires less room to grow, and is more resistant to disease. This is an all-around superior seed that produces great corn for popcorn. Well, if I start using that new seed with its improved quality, my ability to produce corn increases. Now, if the amount or quality of resources decreases, well, that reduces my ability to produce a good or service. Selling half of my farmland means I'm not going to be able to grow as much corn. All right, last guiding question of the day. How do changes in the amount and quality of resources impact production? Let's take a moment to recap. Today, we learned that resources are the different items and ingredients that go into producing a good or service. These resources can be natural, capital, human, or goods. And access to these resources helps answer some of the basic economic questions and dictate production. But as the amount of resources and their quality change, the ability to produce is impacted. In our next lesson, we're going to take a look at some of the economic decisions we make and what those choices cost us. But until then, I'm Bea, reminding you to keep investing in your future one lesson at a time.
Hey, hey.